Have you ever noticed that even after achieving something you wanted, part of you still feels anxious, empty, or restless? You improve yourself, you chase success, you try to heal, you try to feel worthy, and yet the mind keeps returning to fear, comparison, conflict, and self-doubt. What if the problem isn't your life, but the identity you've been taught to believe you are? In this video, we are going to explore why the ego creates suffering, why fear and conflict feels so automatic, why external validation never fully satisfies, and how inner peace begins when perception changes. Most people think they teach through words, but your emotional state teaches far more powerfully than what you say. Fear teaches fear. Peace teaches peace. If you constantly live in anxiety, self-judgment, resentment, or emotional chaos, the people around you feel it, even when you stay silent. And at the same time, every thought you repeatedly think strengthens itself within you. Every judgment reinforces judgment. Every fearful interpretation reinforces fear. Your mind is constantly conditioning itself, which means the way you live becomes the lesson you teach yourself and others every day. So the real question is, what energy am I reinforcing through the way I think and live? The ego is built on one core belief: I am separate. Separate from others, separate from love, separate from peace, separate from wholeness. And because of this, the ego builds identity through comparison, competition, achievement, control, and the need to feel special. It constantly asks, am I enough? Am I more successful, more attractive, more important, more loved? The ego survives through comparison because comparison maintains separation. And once your identity depends on external things, life starts feeling threatening. Criticism hurts deeply. Rejection feels unbearable. Failure feels personal. Aging creates fear. Loss feels like destruction. The ego is constantly protecting an image, and that image is never fully secure. Once the mind believes it is separate, fear naturally follows. Because if you are truly alone, then everything becomes survival. The ego experiences life through defense, through attack, competition, self-protection. This is why conflict feels so normal. Most people believe conflict exists because people are different. But often conflict begins because the mind feels disconnected and threatened. Think about how quickly fear appears. Someone ignores your message, someone criticizes you, someone disagrees with you, and immediately the mind creates meaning. I am rejected. I'm not respected. I need to defend myself. And suddenly, the nervous system reacts as if survival is at stake. The fear is often deeper than the event itself. It comes from the fear of disconnection underneath it. And here's the hopeful part. Conflict is not inevitable. Suffering is not fixed, because perception can change. Most emotional pain comes not only from what happened, but from the meaning the mind attaches to it. For example, someone speaks harshly to you. The fearful mind interprets, I'm being attacked. But another perspective might see someone overwhelmed, wounded, unconscious, or carrying their own pain. That doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it changes the emotional experience inside you. Forgiveness is not about pretending pain didn't happen. It's refusing to let fear become the lens through which you see everything. Peace begins when we ask, could there be another way to interpret this? The ego promises happiness through achievement, attention, validation, pleasure, success, and status. And temporarily, these things can feel exciting, but they don't create lasting peace because the ego is built on the belief something is missing. So even after getting what it wants, it immediately searches for the next thing. This is why people can become successful, famous, admired, wealthy, and still feel deeply empty inside. The mind confuses stimulation with fulfillment. But emotional intensity is not the same thing as inner peace. Peace is quieter, more grounded, less dependent on external conditions. Real peace begins when your worth is no longer tied to constantly proving yourself. Fear isolates, love connects. Fear says, protect yourself. Love says, you are already safe enough to open your heart. Fear creates walls, defensiveness, and separation. Love creates understanding, connection, and healing. Most people think love is fragile, but actually fear is fragile. Fear constantly needs control, reassurance, validation, and protection. Love does not need to prove itself. And maybe the deepest part of healing is realizing the fearful identity in your mind is not your entire self. Beneath all the conditioning, there is still something whole in you, something untouched by fear. Most people spend their entire lives believing I must become worthy of peace. But what if peace is not something you earn? What if peace is what remains when fear, guilt, shame, and self-judgment begin to fall away? Think about the rare moments where you stop comparing, stop proving, stop defending, and stop chasing. And suddenly you feel okay for no reason. That feeling matters. Because maybe healing isn't becoming someone new. Maybe healing is remembering who you were before fear taught you to see yourself as incomplete. Maybe the deepest part of you was never broken. So the ego survives through fear, separation, and constant striving. But peace begins when we stop building identity around fear. Not perfectly, not overnight, but moment by moment, through awareness, through forgiveness, through choosing connection over separation. So let me know in the comments which part impacted you the most.